Hey, I gotta tell you, Fairy Tale The 100 Years Quest be wildin' sometimes, but at the same time, when I rethink about some of the stuff that they put in there, I'm just like, you know what? That's not actually that bad. It's not as out of left field as it feels like it could be. So it continues to really have the benefit of a lot of my doubt in it, because it's just like it's so far at almost 100 chapters. I've yet to actually kind of feel like, oh, that's an asshole, oh, that's stupid, oh, that's ridiculous, or anything like that. So it's just like, I don't know, my enjoyment of it is just overshadowing anything else I could really nitpick towards it. And I also love the lore building in this chapter, as we get a little bit more information about the history of the wizarding world, which well, trademark Harry Potter and all that, Universal. But for Fairy Tale, apparently, and I don't remember if this was ever stated in the actual series. I mean, it has been a while since I've read the manga and watched the anime, the original Fairy Tale manga and anime, but I don't quite remember hearing that apparently wizards used to be persecuted, like literal witch hunts and stuff like that. Like, that feels like something that we should have heard of, and it makes sense. Whereas magic at one point was not commonplace, eventually it would be more, accepted and more widespread. That's kind of how history and time and innovation works. It's how science came to be so prevalent in our world today. Back during the day, especially if you've watched Castlevania, you talk about science, you're labeled a witch and a heretic. Nowadays, it's just like people who go against science still exist, all things considered, but they're usually kind of looked down upon. So it really is a fascinating angle. And, that good old Mashima genocide coming back into play again. It's just like, yeah, no cruelty is as cruel as Mashima cruelty. It's just like, it's as PG-13 rated cruelty as you can get in certain situations. Because I've been reading through Eden Zero too, and thinking back to some of the stuff that happened in Fairy Tale, it's just like, man, there were a lot of bodies. There were a lot of bodies in the series. A lot of people keep dying. So many people keep dying. But in the wake of all that persecution, the first Wizards Guild was founded to unite wizards and protect them against persecution. And I guess through taking jobs and spreading the word of wizards and how helpful they could be to society, because you're only worth something if you're helpful to society. How that goes. Wizard guilds started to kind of appear all over the map. Because, hey, if you're going to have magic, you might as well use that magic to aid people and get some of that sweet, sweet coin. And that includes Fairy Tale. And that Wizards Guild was the Magia Guild. I love that Magia. Something about that tickles me a little bit. Led by Elf Sarah himself, which honestly, I kind of want a little bit more of that history. Like, I'm kind of fascinated. I want something kind of almost akin to Fairy Tale Zero to a certain degree, but I don't know. Maybe that might be a little too messed up. Don't know how good I'd feel about seeing wizard persecution. I also love how thick the Magia Guild hall is with just ether nano, to the point where it's just floating in the air. There's just ether and nano everywhere. It's actually kind of cool. But Natsu's team arrives back, meets up with Elf Sarah, who is just almost stunned looking at the tablet of the five dragon gods, noting that Mercuphobia and Alderon have been sealed away for the first time in 100 years. Like, man, if I had to wait 100 years for something like that, I'd be kind of taking it in too. It's just like, just take in that moment of just like, It's been 100 years, and finally it's happened. Not just one, but two dragons. Incredible. Although Lucy notes that Mercuphobia was actually a kind of good guy, and Urza also notes that Alderaan was only brought down because the entire Fairy Tale Guild helped out. Again, I like that because, having it be a threat that Team Natsu just specifically had to have outside forces or certain circumstances happen in order to actually help them bring someone down helps to validate the threat of the enemies they face, at least in my eyes. But Elsera is tickled pink by everything that they've done, so he treats them to a little bit of a feast, and he also hears the report that Celine was mostly just driven away for the most part from a samurai of the Diablos Guild, and Elsera immediately knows that it's Suzaku. And Elsera fills in Natsu's team that, Diablos is an official Wizards Guild of Gultana. And we even find out, it's something that I was kind of wondering too, because they are hunting dragons, which is not a crime, but they're very dark guild looking, feeling. Just everything about them kind of screams dark guild, but Elsera is just like, no, they're an official guild. But he does say that Mr. George is a scumbag for the most part, but it's not like they've violated any laws in anything that they've done. But Carla does question, it's just like, but they're acting as though the hunt that they're on to slay the dragons is a job, almost as if they were previously commissioned to do so. And, Elsera kind of gives it away that, yes, several years ago, George was commissioned to complete the 100 Years quest, but the Diablos Guild did not exist that time ago. And again, I love this backstory. It's really kind of fascinating, and it's stuff that I was kind of wondering about for the most part. And we find out that the Diablos Guild was actually created because of the 100 Years quest. Apparently, and some of this is me speculating, but George had apparently gone on the quest, and at some point he killed several other dragons, and I think he did that in order to boost his own power. And he got that power by consuming these dragons' flesh, and then he became known as the Dragon Eater. I think he was doing that in order to boost his own strength and abilities. And with his rise in power and his capabilities of just slaying dragons, which, remember, during the Grand Magic Games, when all those dragons started coming out and rampaging, they were tough as shit to take down. Like, normal dragons are not easy to take down. That needs a lot of effort. And so people started to gather underneath him who were just very impressed by his power and abilities, and that was the Wizard Guild's Diablos. However, ultimately, the fact that the Diablos Guild exists in general means that Gregor kind of broke the rules and the agreement with Elsera in that he wasn't supposed to tell others about the details of the 100 Years quest, which is why the rest of the Fairy Tale Guild didn't, help out, or nobody new joined up with Team Natsu in the 100 Years quest, because it's just like, look, he had a core team he brought in to do this quest. Nobody really outside of that is supposed to be helping out in any way, shape, or form. So the request was annulled, and it was passed on naturally to the Fairy Tale Guild. And from a certain standpoint, it is technically illegal what he's doing in going after the 5 dragon gods. Technically. technically. I feel like it's one of those things where he can plausibly deny that, oh, we had just heard reports of this rampaging dragon and we went to go investigate, stuff like that. I mean, again, because they are an official guild. And Elf Sarah even kind of, while he's not happy about the way Diablos is going about it, if Diablos should be capable of sealing away the dragons, he's kind of decided to leave Diablos alone in the matter. So he's kind of giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want if there's the potential that it might lead to what he wants in the end. It's a bit of a harsh double standard that, of course, most of our team kind of gets a little up in arms about. But Urza, being the oldest and the veteran of the group, is very matter of fact that, look, if that's what our client wants, that we can't really go against that. He makes the terms of the contract and the job. Fulfilling that helps their reputation as a whole. That's the thing. It's a professional way of looking at things. However, Urza also does note that they have come into conflict with Diablos as well. And, that's another story. And that's something everybody does rally behind. That if the Diablos Guild should come to blows with Fairy Tail yet again, because let's be real, on 3 separate occasions, Diablos has gotten in their way. So it's fight on sight. They gonna throw hands like their name was Phantom Lord. It's that fight on sight mentality, like Raventail or something like that. It's just like, nah. We ain't having none of this guild rivalry going on. And very similar to the whole situation with Phantom Lord, there's supposed to be a anti-interguild conflict situation going on, so that's a bit of a problem. And Urza claps back by saying that, ultimately they start the fight, Fairy Tail will basically finish it, which I like. Also, Elf Sarah going between Lucy's boobs, so couldn't go too long without some titty action. It's been a hot minute since we had some titty action. Although Elf Sarah does wish that they would simply work together, that would probably be the greatest benefit above anything else. Elf Sarah's assistant Hikage, who is a talking crow, also arrives in a very panicked state, saying that there are intruders in the Great Labyrinth, which just completely takes Elf Sarah off guard. And Hikage notes that it is the Diablos Guild, with their entire force of Dark Dragon Slayer Knights. So they're pretty much full-powered at this point. And then we see, guarding the entrance to the labyrinth, we have Scullion Raider, Mad Moral, and Kyrie, who note that while Celine does want Elf Sarah, there's something else she wants as well, as we then see the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights. Kieran, the Yellow Dragon, this older-looking gentleman with a top hat and a monocle. I'm kind of digging his style, and it looks like he's carrying a coffin on his back. Haku, the White Tiger Dragon, who just seems to be this little kid in a cat hoodie with tiger stripes and stuff. Pretty cool. Misaka, who has this Hime-sama look about her. Misaka, the Azure Dragon. And of course, Suzaku, the Vermilion Dragon. Now, it's interesting, too, because George, he was a 4-beast dragon slayer. And the 4 beasts, the 4 sacred beasts, are representative in Chinese mythology as creatures who represents the directions, north, south, east, and west. And, of course, you have the Azure Dragon, the Vermilion Bird, the White Tiger, and the Black Tortoise. And that seems to a certain degree to also represent at least 3 of the Dragon Slayer Knights, namely Suzaka, Misaki, and Haku. Interestingly enough, Kirin, who is representative of the Yellow Dragon, that is the center direction and is usually considered the fifth of the four beasts. So it's an interesting little reference there. I do wonder why we don't have the black tortoise, interestingly enough. I know that normally the yellow dragon or the Kirin is usually kind of overlooked to a certain degree, but I do have to wonder. And interestingly enough, the Kirin is usually kind of like a chimera, I mean to say. Although the thing about that is also that it doesn't really help us understand what these Dragon Slayers' abilities actually are, as Suzaku got his power from the Sword Dragon, so what their powers actually are is kind of anyone's guess to a certain degree, but I am interested to see what powers they wield, because, they must all be Dragon Slayers, although, considering the power of Suzaku, they must all be fairly capable, so I am wondering how much of a challenge they'll ultimately pose to our heroes. Because with this, the Diablos Guild has gone from a bit of an inconvenience with the three we were dealing with before to a full-fledged problem. Although one thing I do have to note that I'm actually kind of okay with in terms of the Dragon Slayer Knights is that, Kirin, Haku, Misaka, they're all just kind of rolling with the fact that Selena's taken over. Kirin noting that a world made of humans, that's something I can kind of get behind. Haku just kind of thinks it's cool to have a dragon as their guild master, and Misaka doesn't disagree with that. It seems to be Suzaku who's the only one who's kind of still a little bit salty about all of that. So I do find that a little bit fascinating. They're not all on the same page about this. I really am wondering, what was it that George did that solidified Suzaku's loyalty in him? He just really does not strike me. George doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would have ever earned Suzaku's loyalty, even a modicum of it. So I'm really curious as to that backstory. But when Urza does question Elsera what the Great Labyrinth is and why Diablos Guild would go there, Elsera reveals that that is the location of the slumbering sixth of the 5 dragon gods. Now, while on one hand, anyone who's just like, oh, come on, 6 of the 5 Dragon Slayer gods, you're just pulling dragons out of your ass at this point. I thought about it for a second, and then I realized that, well, if this 6th dragon was sealed away, and not considered a threat, and probably sealed away before the 100-year quest or all of that, it wouldn't have been a creature that was ever on the mind of Elsera. It was a powerful creature, but it was a powerful creature who was kind of inert for the most part. So I can kind of gel with that to a certain degree. But I do hope that the explanation behind this 6th dragon is a good one, because I was okay with them just going after Elsera. He's a very powerful dragon as well, gaining his power very much through the same way as Acnologia and Irene. So, and they were fairly powerful as well, so it stands to reason that Elsera has a bit of get up and go behind him as well. It's just okay, I can get that. And with Celine's goal of making a world of humans that she rules over, understandable. But why go after this 6th dragon if it's not even a threat? To what end? What is the end goal here? Now, I'm not mad that this dragon exists, though I am questioning why it is a priority to any degree, any way, shape, or form. So depending on the response there, might color my impression going forward. But so far, I'm digging it. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I love the backstory. I love the history. I love the character building and all that good stuff. Each 100 Years Quest continues to be a very solidly written story. And, for something that I was honestly, I would have thought was just this thing for Mashima to just put out there. Oh, this is just what the gang is off doing after everything else. It's just like, it's whatever. But no, this has been a very good, legitimate story, and I'm happy to see it continue forward. And I'm happy that it's getting an anime adaptation because it's been really good. Like, dang. And with what I've read in Eden Zero, and I've even been reading Mashima Heroes, catching up on that too, I'm just like, man, it's just all coming back to me why I really love Mashima's stories and stuff like that. He really does know how to build interest. Whether he keeps that is a bit of another story, but I've been enjoying it. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you interested to see where this direction with the sixth dragon is going, or do you feel that it's too contrived for your taste? Let me know your thoughts, and if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.